Good evening. I'd like to open the 22nd meeting of fiscal year 2019 of the Milton Planning Board. I'm Cheryl Tagayas, the chair.
Denny Swenson, member.
Richard Beeler, member.
Julia Getman, clerk.
William Clark, Planning Director.
Lauren Master, Assistant Town Planner.
April Anderson Lamoureux, Treasurer.
And I'm to announce that Brian Furs is
Secretary.
joining us on the phone and go to meeting. So Brian?
Yes, I'm here. Brian
Okay.
Furs,
All right, great.
member.
Okay. We have on our agenda, under administrative items, our next meeting dates are May 9th and the 23rd. Town meeting is the week of the 9th, so it starts on the 6th. It may end up running 3 nights, which would include the 9th. If it runs the 9th, if it looks like it's going to run, we'll have to cancel our meeting. All right? Or we will either open it and close it immediately if we don't have time to cancel it per the time frame. Anything that might be on that agenda would then move to the 23rd. Approval of minutes, I'd like to defer to our next meeting. And citizen speak, I just want to alert folks that we're going to, in a moment, take up A&R for 8090 Smith Road, but just in order to continue it. So if there's anyone else here who would like to speak to the planning board for citizen speak, please indicate so. Yes, Kathy, come forward.
Forgot my glasses, so bear with me while I enlarge screens. Okay, hi, I'm Kathy Keys. I live at 30 High Street, and I'm here just to talk to one of your agenda items tonight, which is discussing an overview of the Master Plan Implementation Committee Town Meeting Report. And I have several questions, which don't have to be answered tonight, of course, but answers in writing down the road will be helpful, and this might be an ongoing effort. So we live in the village, my family, my neighbors, and we've been there for quite a while, and we're curious as to specifically what is the overlay trying to achieve, and how will it benefit the existing property owners in the village and the wharf, the extended neighborhood and the town, and how will additional parking needs be accommodated? There has been discussion of bringing in Boston Kayak and Canoe to the wharf area. Would love that idea, but the questions remain as to, is this a seasonal business? Will they pay rent year-round? How and where will they be staged? What space and infrastructure will be required? How will this impact the yacht club? How will this impact the farmers market? And how will this impact parking throughout the village? Where will the boat clients park, and how will that parking be accommodated? And lastly, affordable housing development is worthy, but please share how the entire town will share in meeting the affordable housing goals to ensure that no one neighborhood is unduly burdened. So these are the things we're kicking around among our neighbors, and we'll probably come back with more questions as the time goes on, but where this is an elected board and we're on cable, it'd be nice to have these things kicked around publicly rather than in a quiet MPIC meeting that no one comes to and is not recorded. So, thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
Good evening.
Anyone else? Yes, come forward here.
Good evening. My name is Hale Smith, and I live at 1632 Canton Avenue. I come before you this evening as both an abutter to Wolcott Woods and also as president of the Blue Hill Neighborhood Association. I and other members of the neighborhood have closely followed Milton Planning Board's deliberation on this development for over 3 years and have spoken before you many times. As this may be my last opportunity to speak before you vote on Northland's residential special permit application, I would first like to thank the planning board members for your service and long hours of deliberation. The work that you do for the town is not easy, and I do appreciate it. Blue Hill Neighborhood Association has made several requests to the planning board that I would like to reinforce this evening. They include, number one, denying the developer's request to waive town standards, specifically those related to number of street trees required and use of granite curbing versus asphalt curbing. The second request is requiring measures to improve public safety and address traffic mitigation. Regarding shade trees, the Blue Hill Neighborhood Association requests that the planning board not entertain a waiver at the beginning of the project, but rather wait 5 years until the end of the project. Only after all clearing, road construction, and building is completed will it be possible to assess the real need for shade trees. Granite curbing is a quality and aesthetic issue. Blue Hill Neighborhood Association believes that sloped-faced granite curbing would enhance the development's value to the neighborhood and to the town long after the developer has departed. The last item I would like to bring up is public safety and traffic mitigation. Wolcott Woods will increase the number of homes in the neighborhood from approximately 75 to 125, a 67% increase. Allow me to repeat that again. For the mile-long stretch of Canton Avenue, that includes Upper Canton Avenue, Dollar Lane, and Hemlock Drive, this development will increase the number of homes in the Blue Hill Neighborhood Association by 67%. The developer should not get a free pass on its impact on the neighborhood. At a minimum, the Blue Hill Neighborhood Association asks that Northland pay to narrow the southern entrance of Canton Avenue from Route 138 and to create a sidewalk from Wolcott Woods walking path to Blue Hill Summit Road. The items I have listed, shade trees, granite curbing, public safety, and traffic mitigation, are all within the planning board's power to require of the developer. The neighborhood strongly believes that these requests are in the best long-term interest of our town and our community. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank the community, your neighborhood, and Historic Commission, Shade Tree Committee, all of the public stakeholders who have come forward, meeting after meeting, and taken the time to really look these plans over and to provide thoughtful insight and information. It's been very, very helpful in the process, so thank you. Thank you, Hale, for leading that.
Sure.
Thank you. Before we get to the last few items and talk about potential to close the hearing and take votes tonight, I want to thank not only Hale and the Blue Hills Neighborhood Association, but all the people who've been working the last 3 years on trying to find a solution for a change to a piece of property that many people maybe hope wouldn't have to change much at all. But where it is private property and it can have new development, what this board has worked to do is to seek to work with the neighbors, the applicant, town staff, and the town as a whole to see that the best development here happen with the least impacts. And so I thank everyone for their participation, from town staff, both here and not. We have staff at the DPW and the building department who have spent their time. And we have an applicant with a team. We have other commissions and boards, including the Historical Commission and the Shade Tree Advisory Committee, who have spent their time on this as well. And so all of the collective comments and input have been considered, and I think we're close. So with that, we have a few outstanding items that we all know that we said at our last meeting that we would take up at this meeting. So I think we should go right to those. Yes?
Have you opened the hearing?
You're right, we haven't opened the hearing. Thank you.
I was just going to say that.
All right, so it is 7:19, and we are opening the hearing, the continuation of the hearing for Wolcott Woods special permit, which has been continued from April 11th. Oh, and I'm sorry, we're going to open it and then defer for a moment, okay? Because we have one item that will take us 1 minute, and that is the 8090 Smith A&R. That's on our agenda under new business. The applicant's attorney, Marion McKettrick, has provided us with a letter suggesting that we continue this matter to a future meeting. I'd like to suggest, since the meeting on May 9th is a little bit up in the air due to town meeting, that it be May 23rd. And understanding that we will need additional time in order to make that date work, the applicant would grant us 21 days additional time to take this up for approval. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, all right, so I'll take a motion. We have is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, because Brian's on the phone, we will need to do a roll call vote. So all those in favor, Cheryl Tagayas, yes.
Jenny Swenson, yes?
Richard Beeler, yes.
Oh, April Anderson Lamoureux, yes. Brian?
Yeah.
Brian said yes.
Okay. Thank you.
The documentation for this you got in your packet. Should have brought them home.
Right, and then there's, right, so we have it.
Right, it's not the one that's in front of you on the table.
No,
That's
That's the roll cut, okay.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Marion. And thank you, folks, for, I should have done that before opening the special permit hearing. So now, we're back to the hearing. There's documents that we have, but before we get to the documents, there was discussion about sending these documents to town council for review. And what we have before us incorporates town council's suggested modifications. Okay, so the applicant received these when we did today, so will be some need for some discussion tonight, and there may be some further, hopefully minor edits of documents tonight. So we had 3 primary outstanding issues. They were the same issues that Hale identified. So let's take them, we can take them in the order, I guess, that he presented them, which is 2 waiver requests. One has to do with the quantity of shade trees, street trees. We've talked about how the applicant has suggested that the 171 includes trees, species that aren't shade trees, some that are smaller than would be considered a street tree. We've talked about requiring additional trees, additional shade trees. I've checked that with town council. That is something he's comfortable with us requiring. So, yes, Rich.
Well, it seems that they offered 20.
I don't know if, has the developer have any input from the last meeting on that subject?
Yeah, I don't know if they have anything more to add on any of
can
these
come
issues, but
forward.
if they do, this would be the time to speak up, probably.
I would keep going.
Keep going? Okay. So, John, the reason there's 20 added to the special permit is because, to the draft that we all have, is that I asked John Flynn about, while he was doing edits, since we wouldn't have too many versions of edits coming around to us today, if he would include that in his. So he did.
This email just came in.
So it would be in, I think it's, page 9, section 10, no, I'm sorry, section 11, street trees. The sentence that he added was that the owner applicant shall provide 20 additional shade trees in order to provide a more acceptable ratio of shade trees to street trees.
So,
That language, we can
Sort of flexible.
We
Starts
can,
where it goes.
yeah, and exactly how that works. So we can talk about that when we get to the specific language, if you like. But in terms of that being a resolution of this particular issue, where do people stand, or how do people feel about that, or members feel about that?
I kind of want to hear from Denny, a
yeah.
resident tree expert.
I just want to confirm that it's the same size as required, that the trees, all of the trees that are considered shade trees are of the size that are required in our rules and regs.
And those 20?
Well, those 20, but
All of them?
all of the trees that go into the count of shade trees are of the size of our rules and regs. I forget what it was, 12 feet?
I believe that they're called out as 3.5-inch caliper on the
3.5
plans.
to 4.5, yep.
Okay.
And our rules and regs, that's the size that's required, is that correct, Lauren and Bill? Correct? The 3.5 inch is what the rules and regs say, right?
Yes.
And that's what's called out on their plans, right? Okay.
So the neighborhood knows. At the last meeting, we had asked for 25 trees, and the developer is offering 20 trees.
I don't know that the developer's offering anything. I think John Flynn made this up. Is that right?
Well, I may have made a mistake. I said 20 to him.
Oh, okay.
If it was 25, we can discuss that, if that's the number that,
That's what the ask was at the last meeting.
Okay, all right.
And it's of the same size as the...
okay.
Okay. So if you're comfortable with that, Denny, I am
Yep,
too.
I'm ready for 25. Thank you. Good job, Cheryl.
All right, so we have consensus on this.
Yeah.
All right, that's one.
One out of three?
So
And
does
it's
that-
725. We
Does
got one out
that,
of three.
are we talking about adding 25 to this?
Yep, 25 trees to that,
All right.
because for a variety
Yeah.
of reasons. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. Yep, I get it.
We can talk about the specific language, I think, when we go
Right.
through the line item changes.
Sure.
Okay, so on the curbing, I'd like to hear if, Stephen, I represented, I think, at the last meeting that the Historical Commission was not supportive of granite curbing. Is that correct?
That's not correct.
Okay, can you come forward?
Steve O'Donnell, Historical Commission. Your statement isn't correct because the Historical Commission took no position
Okay.
on curbing at all.
Okay, thank you.
Left it up to the board.
All right, thank you. I just wanted, because I just wanted to make sure
Just
that
telling
that was
Brian
a
to mute
correction.
his phone. Just
Oh, okay.
can hear
All right, so
comments.
I think, I mean, we've talked about this. At the last meeting, I gave my view in terms of the aesthetic, and so my view is that I would support the waiver as requested with the vertical granite curbing as shown and indicated to the point at which it's shown on the plans now.
I mean, I actually feel the same. I've spent a lot of time driving around per the suggestions to the different projects, and I feel like this project has been very specifically designed to try to fit into the landscape and look as close to what it used to be as possible. And I agree with whomever said earlier, if there was no curbing, that would probably be more appropriate, but regulations don't allow for that. So I'm comfortable with what's proposed.
Brian? We're working our way around the table. We can reverse direction if you'd like.
I just told him to put his phone on mute, so he might be talking
Yeah.
to us.
Be on mute,
Yeah.
talking to himself. I've done that.
Yeah.
Should I notify him, Lauren?
hear us?
Okay, so we'll jump over to Rich then.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo what April just said. The other thing I would add to that is, you know, what I was struggling with before is, you know, because we were talking about bylaws or the regs, what it's supposed to be, and I do think, it's an old, and it needs to probably be looked at and revised, because I did the same thing. I drove around the town and looked,
Yeah.
and we don't, I mean, we don't have in our neighborhoods all granite curbing. And the one difference, though, that I'm looking at in our neighborhoods in this is private property, whereas I'm looking also at neighborhoods that are public ways. And so, I don't think there's a delineation between public and private in that bylaw. Maybe there should. I don't know. But for that, I'm kind of thinking the same exact. I like the way aesthetically they built it, and I do like that they have granite curbing where it counts, where I see it in most areas. So that's where I'm thinking as well. But I'd like to hear everybody else.
I'd also like to hear where people think there's a public good. I think, and I know this is an aesthetic choice, aesthetically I think the granite curbing looks much better. I think the neighborhood's suggestion of sloped is the nicest blending in the area. So if you had the option of no curbing would mean that cars would kind of drive off and you'd have like no grass beside the pavement, which would look kind of muddy and not great. Then the next best option is sloped, in my opinion, because it would be the most blendable and it would last for decades as opposed to a couple of snowplow seasons. So I think it's the win for the town and it's the win for the Upper Canton Avenue. So that's where I'm at.
Brian?
Brian?
Yeah, I'm here. I was just getting off mute. I'm comfortable with where we are on curbing. I was happy that they got us up to a point where, from an aesthetic standpoint, looking up from Canton Avenue, we have granite curbing. It appears that it, from Canton Avenue, that that's pretty much what you can see. And up beyond that, inside the project, I'm comfortable giving a waiver. I think there's strong precedence for that. I think it's very consistent with what's going on Upper Canton Avenue generally, and so I'm very comfortable with where we are.
Okay, so in determining whether to grant waivers, the planning board has to consider these factors: the preservation of natural resources, topography, and the desire to minimize cut and fill, environmental values, scenic and aesthetic characteristics, historic values, public safety, possible compensatory actions, and sound planning considerations. So I think we've talked about all of these in terms of Denny's question as to the board talking about the benefit. It's the historic, scenic, and aesthetic. And where this is a private way, it's a loop. It doesn't link to the grid system or to a roadway system beyond the individual property. I think the public safety aspect of it is not really a detriment to the public safety. And so I do think the preservation of natural resources, where we've talked about other waivers in terms of road widths and other things, and what kind of road are we putting into this kind of more natural landscape. The curb is a part of that, so I feel as if that falls into it. So we have 4 out of 5 who are supportive of the waiver on the requirement of vertical granite curbing on the roadway. So that leads us to the,
Do we have to vote on these?
we can, or we can just make it part of.
Did we vote on the others? I can't recall.
No, we just developed a consensus.
Oh, okay. I mean, I
And-
think on the curbing, it cuts both ways. So some people think aesthetically it's more attractive, some people don't. So, I mean, I think that's sort of a judgment call, right?
Yeah.
So then we have the,
Just one more point
Sure.
to put on the public record, that when you go to 55-plus neighborhoods, they often do have far more granite than the other neighborhoods. I think, I want to say more than 50% when I had reported this at earlier meetings. So that's the only other thing, is that
I think definitely the over 55 aspect of the neighborhood is one of the reasons why we also were insistent on a continuous sidewalk or a sidewalk along the roadway.
Yeah.
Because we do know that that's an important public safety feature, even on a road that has lesser traffic than some. Yes, Rich?
I just want to say, because I didn't want to discount what you said, because I was thinking the same thing. But when I was looking at, so this property, I don't know, in my opinion, it was kind of unique. It's not like, and I know we've talked about Fuller at one point.
Yeah.
It's just a different layout. I mean, they're different buildings. This is, I think, at least from what I've been hearing this year, is the spirit of this was that it was trying to retain that look of what it's got kind of now, right? And so for me, it was like a judgment call of it. You know, it's a different property, and so it made sense. But I was specific, and I think it's in there, that the granite curbing should be in the places where they need to be, and I think they are. I do like what Brian added, so that aesthetically looking up, you can see it. You know, ultimately, when you get up in there, it's private, right? So, I mean, I think that was pretty strong, what made me think the opposite, you know, about that I would be fine with allowing it, kind of all of that together, if that makes sense.
Okay, so we're ready to move to the last of the 3 outstanding items? Okay.
What was the last?
It has to do with the traffic.
mitigation.
That's, which is number 15, if you wanted to refer to the decision, draft decision.
Is that special permit? Page 15?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
yep.
So we have signage that was presented to us. We have a traffic report and a supplemental traffic report and peer review of the traffic and supplemental. And in all cases, it was deemed that this project would have minimal impact on the existing traffic situation. Not to minimize the issues with the existing traffic situation, but that this project would have minimal impacts. And so our requirement of addressing it, in terms of traffic, has to do with the impacts, and not beyond, and having to, or looking to solve problems or issues that are beyond the impacts. And so the discussion has been whether the additional signage and the $27,000 into the traffic safety and infrastructure revolving fund adequately addresses the impacts as identified in those reports. Anyone want to take the lead discussion?
I will.
Try.
Well, no, you go, Rich.
You want me to go? It was simple.
You don't want to take the wind out of your sails.
No, I probably forgot what I was going to say now. So for me, I mean, this one's a tough one, because for me, we did a peer review, and they're coming back as saying that there isn't an additional burden on that area. The problem is you've got an area that's already burdened, like many other areas in the town, and so I think it's tough to look at this one because it's burdened. But obviously, again, the way I'm looking at it is our peer review is saying that this does not add additional to it, right? So I guess my question back to the group would be, how do we add anything to it when our recommendation from that review is nothing? So that's where I was struggling last time, and I'm glad we kicked it today with the other group, just because I know we were going around and we were, obviously there's few on either side, but I don't know how we would force anything more here if there isn't something saying that we should.
And as you recall, last meeting, I mentioned that I had spoken about this with Town Council, John Flynn, in particular about the suggestions that Hale Smith made earlier, and had been in a letter to us about a walking path, which would be off-site, and the road narrowing, and where the traffic studies found minimal impact. He felt that imposing those requirements would be inappropriate given the traffic studies.
So,
Sure. Well, April, do you want to
that's
battle
okay.
out
No,
with
no.
Brian? Okay.
No, I can't see whose hands are raised, so if somebody else had their hand raised.
no,
first,
you're
go
up.
for it.
You're up.
Okay, so I just wanted to say from my position that I think, for me, this is really a legal issue for me and a jurisdictional issue for me. I mean, I think it's pretty clear when you read those reports that the traffic in this area stinks. And I don't think there's anyone on this board, or certainly anybody in the neighborhood, that would suggest otherwise. I think the crux of the matter for me lies in this report basically saying that while the traffic here is bad, this project doesn't necessarily make it any worse. And couple that with our peer reviewer agreeing with that, I don't believe we have the authority to ask for anything beyond what has been accepted by our peer reviewer as adequate to mitigate their limited impact. And I think we're in jeopardy if we do allow for or impose additional conditions, that would be something that, theoretically could be subject to scrutiny and a challenge. So for me, this is really coming down to a legal issue. I believe that, we've gotten what we're going to get from an entitlement standpoint, and maybe even a little bit more. And while it would be great to get some additional contribution to the funds, it doesn't seem like the applicant wants to make that offer. And I candidly don't believe we have the opportunity to impose more. So that's my position. Just wanted to share that with the group.
My turn? So this one has been a sensitive issue for me, I think probably because I do this for a living. I work on behalf of developers negotiating off-site infrastructure deals all over the state. And since I joined this board, this project has been under consideration. Since the zoning was even discussed, this has been a sensitive issue for me, and it's really stinging me to be here tonight, actually. I think that we've had I think this project has showed that we have literally no leadership in our town on development of this scale. Somebody in town should have taken the charge to start working with the development team from the very beginning and start negotiating some of these things. I think the ideas that the neighborhood association brought forward were good ones. The only person who did anything about it was Denny, bringing out the DPW director and the town engineer to kind of kick around ideas, but really, frankly, then I think it was a little too late. I'm sort of disappointed that the developer didn't offer us more, because I have a good idea of what your pro forma looks like, and I know you probably could have supported a greater contribution. But I agree with Brian. I mean, I'm not in the business of putting the town in a bad situation and setting us up to lose on appeal, and I don't think we really have a leg to stand on. I'm very, very disappointed, but I think this shows that we need to do a lot more homework and get our own shop in order so that when the next project comes in, we're better prepared. And I'm upset about it because I made a lot of phone calls to a lot of people trying to help prepare us, and we didn't do our job. So I think the town dropped the ball on this one. We could have probably been a little more savvy in our negotiating skills from the very beginning, and we weren't. But at this point, I don't see us having any recourse, which is very disappointing. So I think that the contribution is what it is, and I don't have any other suggestions on what else we can do about it.
Denny?
Can I just add one more thing to that, Cheryl, before we go to Denny?
Sure. Denny, are you okay?
Yeah.
Because I just want to add something to my comment and echo something that April just said. I felt that traffic was a big deal in this town for a long time, and I spent a fair amount of my time on this board trying to lobby this town to be more attentive to working with developers to figure out a way to bring money to our community so that we could start mitigating our traffic impact from cross traffic and through traffic. And to be honest, we've had very little support from town meeting and even certain people on this board throughout the years to get that traffic mitigation passed. And so I hope that the town can look at this example as why we should be more focused on looking at our bylaws and making really sure that going forward we have the opportunity as a planning board and as a community to ask our commercial partners who are coming into our town and absolutely doing good things and bringing good uses, but making sure that they're doing what they can to better our community, not just not impact it. So again, this is I'm a little bit on my soapbox because this is my last meeting, but I really hope that the town looks at what's going on in our town and really pushes the traffic mitigation issue and tries to make some headway on this in the future. Because this was a huge lost opportunity.
Denny, do you mind if I add something to that first? Just to build on what you said, Brian, the town meeting coming up next week has a request for $150,000, $10,000 of that to go towards a bicycle and pedestrian master plan, and $140,000 to go towards the traffic studies in hot spots, in most difficult spots in town. That was a request made by the Master Plan Implementation Committee, supported by this board, supported by the Select Board, and supported by the Warrant Committee. While this is a difficult fiscal year for the Warrant Committee to and the town administration to balance the budget, they left that request in. So I think it does show an interest in addressing traffic issues. And once you have these plans and know what needs to be done, then when you have a fund, you know what you can apply it towards. One of the other things I think is that putting all of the traffic studies on the applicant and then having it peer reviewed is different than having the town be proactive about doing the traffic analysis itself. And one of the things that we've done in both East Milton and in Milton Village, again, through this board and some through the Master Plan Implementation Committee, is to engage engineers to do traffic studies as part of the zoning analysis rather than have it come through the applicant later. So I do think those are important changes that are in the last year or so in terms of the town being more proactive about looking at our traffic situations and identifying places that need improvement. Okay, Denny?
I agree with a lot of what April said, and I think that this board has reached and really tried, and this developer saved a ton of money by not having to do comprehensive peer reviews. For a variety of reasons, I thought we should have done the peer reviews, but bottom line is I feel like they got off the hook. They saved a ton of money. I feel like we're offering them a ton of waivers that save them a ton of money. And I just feel like at every turn we have reached and we have tried, and I don't feel like they've moved an inch in about 4 months. And at each one of those discussions I had said, I'm not there yet. I'm not comfortable with this. I was very disappointed that they tried to apply the bylaw. I like the use of the revolving fund. I think that's very appropriate. I think it's very appropriate to put money into it. But I do not get the sense that this developer has taken on board how hard this community has worked and reached and tried. And I'm very, disappointed in the way that, I'd like to hear from, before we throw in the towel, I'd like to hear from the developer on what their final proposal is on this.
Mr. Dolly, Mr. Corcoran? No further comment?
No further comment.
Yeah,
Rich?
the only thing I just want to just make sure we say it again. I do agree with all four of those statements. And to echo Brian on the phone, in case folks didn't hear him, I do, and hopefully I'm saying it, Brian would agree for it, so, with what I'm saying, but, so the town does need to do a lot more with traffic in this town. At this point, we're way too far into the game, like was already said, to fix that area's problems on this development. But it doesn't mean that the town should not take leaps and bounds steps forward to help mitigate this. And hopefully some of the things that you mentioned will help us get there. But it's unfortunate that within this project, we're trying to figure out how to fix the larger issue. I mean, this project doesn't help the problem. That's the other way to look at it. It may not hurt it, but it's not helping it either. And so I do agree with everybody's statements.
Hale, you have something you'd like to add?
Yes, I would, please. Hale Smith, 1632 Canton Avenue. I came before this board this evening with 3 requests from the neighborhood. All 3 of them have been ignored. And then I hear a conversation of the board saying that this is the town's problem, that we should kick this one down to the town. Well, guess what? This board has approval power over this development, and use it. Use it for the benefit of the citizens and of the town. There's no reason you have to kick this can down the road and give the developer everything he wants, and that's essentially what's happened. I'm sorry, but I am disappointed in how you are exercising your authority right now.
So I'll just make a comment. Our authority is not unlimited. We have to make our decisions within
You have a lot of
requirements.
leverage.
Excuse me, I have the floor. We have to exercise our decisions within the law, within the guidance of our staff and our professionals, our peer reviewers, our town engineer, our planning department, and our town council. When I am not comfortable making decisions that our town council doesn't feel will hold up in court on appeal or challenge. I'm not an attorney, I rely on town council. If the rest of the board, we've talked about this before, these are difficult decisions, we understand there's disagreement on them, and this board has spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, done a lot of its own research and due diligence. People talk about going and looking at things throughout town. I've spent numerous hours on the phone with town council on each one of these issues. It may not be the perfect solution, but we have to look at it on balance. Is this project going to be a benefit to the town on balance? It's a private property. It can be redeveloped. One of the things that was discussed when zoning was first brought forward for this property is that there would be no zoning required for an applicant to buy this property and propose a subdivision. As long as the applicant met all the requirements for a subdivision, it could have been subdivided into, I've forgotten the quantity, maybe 20-some parcels, no requirements for open space or setbacks beyond the AA zoning, which would have been 30 feet, I believe, and 20 feet and 10 feet. And it would have not had any requirements for preserving many of the features that this application is preserving.
You know what, I don't think you want to bring that up because it's going to bring up the whole thing of how the developer came to town and threatened 300 affordable units and on and on. I don't think we want to go down that path, so I think the neighborhood's already upset. I actually want to tell the neighborhood that I actually agree with them on all 3 points. The one win we have gotten so far is we did get the trees that we were asking for. we got 20 shade trees instead of 25, but, well, no, actually, we got the 25. So, but I agree with you on the other 2 points, and I agree this is a time for leadership, and
Brian, do you have any comments? Yes.
Hey, Cheryl.
Yes, please, Brian, go ahead.
So I guess I just want to check in with the board on kind of where we are in the process here, because I think we're in deliberations at this point. So I would like to make a motion that we close the public hearing at this time.
Is there a second? Or does,
A second.
okay, discussion?
I mean, the only thing is, do we have anything that the public would want to comment as we go to the next phase? What's the next phase, going through each individual thing?
Reading the permit.
And there are very, I think, small edits to the exhibits, which are part of the permit.
There's one last thing on the, before we close the public meeting, on signs, traffic mitigation. During all of our discussions, there was I thought we were including the traffic counter on the Carberry Walcott property, a sign that would count the traffic. I don't see that specifically listed in number 15. Is that where it would go?
I think we're going to define that as the signs that the town uses. I don't know if you guys know what those are called.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
It tells
yeah.
you how fast you're going.
It
and
collects
counts
data.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I assume that would be in here. And the only reason I'm assuming that the public thought that too, that we were going to have that traffic counter sign.
Who provides that, the town or the developer?
I think we're
The
proposing
developer.
2 of them.
Okay, you're proposing 2 of them. And where are they? Are they in special permit or
We're on the sign plan.
Signed?
The sign plan, which was Exhibit B, which we don't have attached to this, but was provided to, a revised plan was provided to us at a prior meeting. Do you have that, Lauren, to put up, do you
I may
think?
not have it.
Okay.
If it was provided to us, I
You have it?
Have it in a
Okay.
library.
I have it someplace,
Somewhere in
I'm
here.
sure. Is it this at the back?
Yes, yes, sir.
Does it say what kind of signs they are?
It shows,
Is there a date on that?
There's one in each direction.
well, install your speed radar speed limit signs with conventional speed limit signs. And there's 2 shown.
Okay.
The date of this document, this was, October 18th, I think.
Dated January 24,
January
2019.
Okay.
Okay,
Must be
so
different.
for the neighbors and public, they're talking about putting two on each end of the Carberry Walcott property. So one, like as you're coming onto Canton Avenue, you have one, and then at the other end of the property, you have the other,
It's on the
You
screen.
got it?
right?
Yep, there we go.
Something like that.
Yeah, okay.
April, she found it, it's on the screen, if you can see it.
Oh, I thought there was an actual exhibit B like this.
But it will be an exhibit, do we have,
But it will be just
it will
this.
be
Sign
this.
is the exhibit.
Yeah.
I mean, that plan is the exhibit.
Here's the other one. Oh, there it is.
There's 2 lines, 2 arrows. Okay, so we have a motion to close the hearing. We have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Cheryl Tagayas, yes?
Denny Swenson, yes?
Richard Beeler, yes.
April Anderson Limero, yes.
Brian Kurtz, yes.
Okay. So with that, shall we start with the draft of the permit and then go through the exhibits?
Sure.
Okay.
Do we have the homeowners association? Oh, I asked you that. We don't have it.
Do you want to do your comments first, Danny, before we get to those?
Sure.
Okay.
If we could, that would help me focus.
All right, so, you want to go ahead?
Okay, well, it seems like my first one was answered. They have added to the construction management plan, they've added that there will be a 24/7 contact person on site.
On page 1 of that document?
Yeah. I don't know where they put it. You have the new one?
The one, yeah, I have it here.
Okay, do you want to,
You want to do it?
you could read it. I don't have it.
Okay, so,
Oh, here it is.
you got it?
Yeah, so, the project management team shall provide the town building, planning, and engineering departments and the neighborhood association with the names of responsible individuals for this project and provide phone numbers and 24/7 contact information in order for them to be contacted. Responsible individuals shall sign an acknowledgement of the requirements of this construction management plan, tree preservation and protection requirements plan, and the special permit. So thank you.
Okay, so first one?
Yeah, that's the first and second. The third one is, anytime the applicant is seeking a waiver in the construction management plan, the special permit, or the tree preservation and protection plan, they will put that waiver request before the planning board. Do you know where we can find that?
It's in the page 2 of the special permit.
And in section 25 of the special permit.
Okay, so in red, in the event of a conflict between any provision of the site plan and any provision of this special permit, site plan approval and scenic road permit, the provisions, oh, never mind, that was the wrong thing. I'm not seeing it on page 2 of the special permit. Do I have the right one, though? What's yours dated?
If you look in section 25, which is on page 14,
Page 14?
there's an amendment. Any substantial amendment shall be subject to the usual requirements and notice advertising the hearing. Insubstantial amendment should be subject to such notice the planning board requires. That deals with any document that is part of the special permit, which would include all of the exhibits.
Now, do you, sorry, if you might come into the microphone
Yeah,
so
can you
everyone can
point to
hear.
us where that is again? What page?
Page 14?
Page 13.
13?
Section 25 starts with amendment.
I'm looking at the wrong
I have
one.
page 14.
Page 14 on,
John Flynn's draft.
what we have a copy
Alright.
of.
Do I,
What
I
was
have
in
the
your
wrong
packet,
version.
with your packet tonight, you have?
The one that I left on the table is the one that I have on
Right.
the screen.
So the one that you have on the table,
Should be that one on your left.
Yeah.
this
You have
one
it.
says 4/19/19 and it's scratched out?
Yep.
Okay,
That's
and
it.
you're saying page 15?
14.
Page 14?
there's a section 25 called
Okay.
amendment.
Okay.
It requires any amendment to any document that's part of the permit to be subject to review.
So not just the ones you listed, Denny, but any?
Okay. Okay. And then I think I read an email that there will be up to 30 trees will be, may be removed in order to install the walking trail. Where would that go?
10.
I thought it was 10 also.
That's in this email thing that we got tonight.
Yeah. Do we know where that's going to go?
Don't have any specific.
Between the middle driveway and the manor house lawn, there are 10 trees, all of which are less than 6
And there's also
inches.
a number of trees at the Walker driveway end.
Oh,
Well,
So it's 10
total-
plus 20? So it's
total
10.
approximately 30. They're all less than 6 inches.
So I think, to your question
that like
about having it,
H, is that the?
what does DPH mean?
That's,
Diameter,
when you're at
That's
4.5 feet,
Okay.
you go around,
Diameter.
yeah, diameter.
So, if you wanted to add some language, it would, I think, be in the section
Well,
12.
I'm not sure that I'm not sure you'd want to add language. You've got a provision in the bylaw and a provision here that deals with removal of any tree that is substantial. And substantial is defined in the bylaws, anything that's 10 inches, DBH or more.
I think it's actually significant, is the term.
Significant
Yeah.
trees, right. And so there's a definition, and that definition is carried into the special permit. There are trees that have to be removed for the installation of the walkway. They're shown, that walkway is shown on the plan, the location of the walkway is shown on the plan. If there's something that's 10 inches or more, we'd have to come back, for specific.
So I just want, how will enforcement know that only up to 30 trees in that area are supposed to be removed? They're not going to necessarily know that. Because that's the only place we have it limited by number.
You mean within the buffer?
Yeah. Within that buffer, it's 30. Anywhere else, it's that formula. So how will they enforce it if they don't know? And they're going to just look at these 3 documents. They're not going to be looking at additional documents. So that's my last request, except for the homeowners association agreement. I just want that to be enforceable.
Well, I would think you would want to have permission to remove those trees too. So
So-
what about in the section 9, page 8, where it talks about what you can and can't do in the different building zones? This would be the no disturbance zone that we're talking about, right? I would think you would want some sort of sentence in there that says you can take up to, should we give them a little
Yeah.
35 in case there's no more than 35?
Well, he walked it, he counted it. He
30,
up
you
to
think?
30,
Okay.
yeah. I mean,
If you add a sentence
chose
to
a
the end
number.
of,
I would think you would want it, because you don't want to get penalized for doing this.
if you add a sentence at the end of paragraph A on page 8,
okay.
You know what I mean, Denny?
Yeah.
So it covers both
Yeah, it's
parties.
great.
So can we get the document, do you have the most current document, Lauren, on the screen?
Yes.
Can we make this edit on the screen, please?
Can you tell me where the edit's going?
It's on page 8, 9A.
the end of A,
Yes.
the owner applicant shall be authorized to remove up to 30 trees associated with the installation of the walking path along Canton
I
Avenue,
would put required for the installation.
or required for the installation.
And
Does need to say the 6 inches.
yeah, up to 30 trees, less
6
than,
inches.
yes, less than 6, or up to 6-inch TBH.
Measuring no larger than.
Yeah, measuring no larger than.
Right.
Okay, how does that sound to everyone?
You need to add the word trees after 30.
Yep, it's there now, to 30 trees.
Hold on, I'm having issues with the connection.
Oh, okay. After 6, we want to say inches. DDH.
Yeah.
Can you see it now, Brian? Brian?
Yes, I can see it now.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it now. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I would just actually put the word inch.
Do we have to define DBH, or is that a common term?
I think it's earlier reference, but I will.
Defined,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
It's in there earlier, and it's a tree, the tree world knows it.
Okay,
Does the
so,
building inspector world know it?
Yeah, he would know it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
does that take care of that?
But yeah, that takes care of my notes. And then the owners association stuff, we'll deal with then.
So the homeowners association, you submitted just a master deed, right? We talked about homeowners association and what they would be required to do, and how these documents would be referenced. So, you know, their obligations would be referenced, right? So.
I thought
Would that be submitted to the town council for review before the actual filing or
Yes.
recording of those?
Yep.
Right.
I thought that was given to John Flynn a while back, and we were reading for it.
He's had it for a while.
But it's generic.
No, it's draft,
Page 13.
specific and
Page
specific
13 of
to
this?
this.
The special permit?
Okay.
Yes. 22 and 23.
All right, so it says it shall be submitted to and subjected to approval of Milton Town Council. You want to have it be like 3, which one did we just read?
Pulte.
Pulte, Milton Woods. You want to add planning board here?
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, I think we should be consistent in how we apply these things.
Yes.
Going to be end.
And planning board. Okay, does that take care of all of that, Denny? Because that
Yep,
it
I'll
will
just
have to
keep
be
these notes
submitted in
for
there.
then.
Okay. One of the things, before we actually go through, that came up at our last meeting that I asked about via email was whether, Jack, you had reviewed the location of the walking path with the Historical Commission. So just for the record, you have done so, right?
Yes.
And Steve, you're satisfied? Yes, okay. And we now have the things that we talked about with respect to Exhibit E are in our revised Exhibit E, so we can look at that. So was there anything else besides the exhibits and the permit?
That need to be discussed?
Right.
We have to vote on the waivers.
Well, the waivers are included in it.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Perfect.
All right, so,
I'm
okay.
sorry, oh, were we starting at the beginning?
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, so, I mean, we can focus on the red lines, if everybody's
Yeah,
read
I
the
think
document
we
from
should
before?
Do that. Is that
Yeah?
okay with you guys?
Yeah.
Is that okay? All right. So, this edit at the very beginning, John Flynn added this subsection. Oh, you have the, yeah, okay.
I
The,
assume Ned's going to speak up if he doesn't agree with something.
Page 2, I asked John to add this sentence about in the event of a conflict between the provisions, because there's a lot of drawings, and while they've been reviewed, there may be inconsistencies, and we feel as if this would be the most current. So this would take precedence. And then the next change, I asked John about the amendments that were voted at the special town meeting, about adding that in. So
And
he
those
did
have already
that.
been approved by the LG?
They have not yet.
I
It
mean,
wa-
by the AG?
No, what came back to us was the fall town meeting ones. Right.
But he said we could put it in reference to it
He put
anyways.
this, yeah.
Okay.
And then on page 5, K, height, the paragraph designation is just a correction with the renumbering of paragraphs. And then on page 6, the third paragraph of section 8, rural, local street, because that's not defined, just to take away the quotation marks.
Okay.
And then we just spoke about our page 8.
I'm impressed with your eagle eyes. I did not see those quotes.
I know.
I was like,
I had to
whoa.
look really hard.
Yeah, I'm getting old.
Well, John called me before this was distributed, so. And he and I spoke about this a couple of times, so. The last version of this had removed on page 9 this paragraph about the rear setback area, so we added that back.
Thank you.
And,
It says pervious materials. Did we say?
I'm sorry, where were you looking? there?
E.
E, okay.
Are you there? Is that what you?
This is the whole paragraph we put back, so is there,
Was it supposed to be impervious?
Didn't we say
Or is it
pavement?
paved?
It's actually, the parking area is outside the 50-foot setback.
Oh,
So that should not be there. The reference to the parking area shouldn't be
okay,
here.
so what we wanted to do was make sure that we limited the use of that area, right? So,
You want to eliminate this sentence, including a small parking area?
yeah.
I'd suggest you just eliminate that clause.
Well, where do we
No,
put
because
it
we
though?
want the upper woods preserved in their existing
Correct.
conditions, right? So, within that 50-foot setback, that's what we wanted. So what we would do is, within the rear setback area, 50 feet, the upper woods, or the area, all right, within the rear setback area, I guess we could say the entire rear setback area shall be preserved in its existing conditions.
Well, it's not, because we're installing a trailhead.
yeah, you just take out the words
Just take
that
out,
she has
just take
highlighted.
out the clause that says including a small
Yeah.
parking area of
All right,
pervious
parking
material.
area, okay.
Does there need to be something about a parking in a different letter, Denny? Is that what you were thinking?
There is a parking area shown on the plan.
Okay.
It's the material that she was talking about, pervious versus impervious, right?
But it's
Right.
supposed to be impervious.
Supposed to be
'cause-
impervious.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
so that was a good catch.
Well, she caught the quotes, I caught the pervious.
So you're making that change? You don't need it because we're not going to have the parking area? Okay, so, then under 10, just being consistent about the use of TPPR, I was concerned about the use of the word final, because it could be 5 years before final certificates of occupancy are issued. We put in for each phase, but we could also say at the time of, however you want to define that, the removal instead of each phase. So, I don't know, each phase seemed to be something that's easily kind of identified.
I think the real idea is that if the contractor or the owner is assessed with a penalty, you should pay it forthwith.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Right.
But certainly no later than,
So, shall be paid over forthwith by the owner applicant, and in any case no later than,
Shall
or
be
shall we,
paid forthwith.
shall be paid forthwith, end?
Forthwith by the owner applicant.
Yes.
Take out the word over. And
Well, it also should keep in
Yeah.
before certificates, right?
Yep.
I think so.
But not later than.
or I would say, I don't know, we want to say something about the building commissioner can withhold the certificates of occupancy if the fees are not paid. Forthwith by the owner applicant to the town for deposit into the.
And then you could, in,
I would just put period after the word fund and then capitalize issuance of certificates of occupancy for each phase shall be withheld by the building commissioner until all fees are paid. Until all assessed.
Brian, can you hear that?
That can't be fees because that's not what we described.
Right.
Until all assessed penalty fees.
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, I have to get my phone off mute when you have.
Penalty, until all penalties are paid, I think, to be consistent, right?
I'll just take it. Oh, but this is stressful.
We don't pay Lauren enough, I'm telling you, she has to do this.
I'm having flashbacks of Julia at town meeting.
Oh. That was so, I don't know how you still with us. That was trauma.
And now Lynn, right? Lynn does it now? Is it Lynn? I think so.
Sorry to be leaning over you.
Okay,
So does that work?
Issuance of,
So it says it should be paid forthwith. If you don't do it, they're going to withhold your
I
occupancy.
think that's fine.
Frankly, that probably could happen either way without that sentence, but
okay, then in 11, this is the additional trees, so we can look at this sentence and see if we want to modify this sentence.
Okay, so we're actually going to page 10, right?
It starts on the bottom of page 9.
Okay.
11, right there.
Okay, so we want it to be 25 shade trees.
I would say provide and install.
Yeah.
So he didn't quite get this right at the end of this, so.
yeah, that doesn't make sense.
So, shade trees, I would say, and then let's take out the rest of that and put, at locations
Which part are you?
to be determined
11, it's John
by the
Flynn's.
arborist.
In section 11, John Flynn's, so we're saying, in order to provide and install. Oh. And then she has,
It's 25.
oh, I guess provide and install is up there, sorry, I got that wrong. And I'm not sure what she's doing.
Now, I'm saying strike the words after trees.
Yeah.
And
In
go-
order to
and-
provide.
Okay, so we're
that-
striking this
yeah.
right
And say, so it would read,
Strike that, you're right, yep.
so it would read the owner applicant shall provide and install 25 additional shade trees. Then I'm suggesting at locations to be determined by the arborist as construction progresses. I'm just suggesting, so it could be by phase.
And I just wanted to take a moment to respond to something that Hale said during public comment, that he had asked if we could wait until construction is done to see where shade trees should go. And the only reason I'm reluctant is because I think it's 5 years away and we won't be here on the board, and we don't want that to get lost. So taking advantage of the 25 trees, getting it into the agreement is a win for all involved.
And where the arborist has to provide reports, I think it's good to put it into the arborist's responsibility, but if you have other suggestions?
Works for me.
But I just wanted to let the public know, I heard them, I understand where they're coming from, but I also like to get things in writing, so I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think there's some benefit to having the trees, I mean, presumably planted and maturing over a 5-year period so that if they die, I mean, I know there's been all this talk about the homeowners association replanting and having responsibility, but I feel like we have a better hook if they're
Right.
during development and they're having these inspections, and
We've got it in these.
rather than waiting and then hoping the homeowners association does the right thing. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah, so.
Okay, move on?
Sorry, one question. But does it state here that they have to be done at the beginning?
No,
Not
it doesn't.
technically,
That's why I said presumably. I mean,
Okay.
we can define, I think that's what Cheryl just said. We can let the arborist decide when
Yeah,
to do it.
okay, good.
You're probably going to.
Or we can define it.
Yeah, which would make sense. Okay.
As construction progresses, makes sense to me, because some may not be in as good of health, and they might decide that there's
Right.
certain ones that should be filled in now.
No, understood.
But-
I just
yeah.
wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so then 13, the retaining walls. There are actually walls that might not be retaining.
Right.
But, so changing this to walls.
Good point.
And then those that are retaining walls, which could be constructed of other materials, need to be faced with stone. So it's a little clarity in the walls, okay? And then this next sentence came about because in reviewing the revised landscape plans, I noticed on L 2.0 that there was a note that about the filling in where the existing driveway is. In my recollection, we had discussed wanting to use the stone that's being removed for the new roadway to fill in. And while the note said new stone wall. So we added this, but also subsequent to that, Ned advised that he spoke to Alan, and Alan has advised him that there's not adequate amount of stone, and so we need to modify this some, right?
So there's, just taking the stone from one side to the other, there's not enough to move over because the walls are going to flare in. So there's going to be, we have to provide new stone. So I would suggest that there should be two sentences. The first would read, at the site of the existing driveway to be removed, and to the extent possible, comma, stone wall infill shall be comprised of stones removed from the existing wall to accommodate the new roadway, period. New sentence, any new stones and mortar shall match existing stones and mortar for size, shape, and color.
Can you repeat the end of that, please? Thank you.
I don't know if you're gonna be able to read that.
I mean, does this do that? The second sentence is a good addition, but is this just an easier fix?
For the first sentence?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, just do this. It's quicker.
Well, they're doing that. Can I ask you a question? On the sentence before that one in red, all retaining walls for whatever purpose may be of concrete or other structural materials, but shall be faced with natural stone in compliance with the bylaw. I thought we were only going to use concrete with us.
So the idea, remember about not taking responsibility, sort of structural responsibility. So what we're doing is separating walls from retaining walls, because retaining walls, if you look at some of the plans, they might be
Cleaner.
retaining 6 feet of earth or
Okay.
maybe something of that nature. So those, we would allow for them because the bylaw allows for, the bylaw actually says stone faced.
Okay.
It's not clear, but we're, in looking
okay.
at the landscape drawings, I did note that on sheet L0, that there are a number of different walls shown. So there's a landscape wall, concrete with stone veneer, a mortared wall that's freestanding, somewhat not really retaining, but there is holding a little earth. It's called a landscape wall, dry stacked boulders. And then there's a landscape wall, mortar wall. And so all but the concrete with stone veneer, you can find in the plans called out. So it does, I think, give a little more clarity because some of these walls are not retaining. If they're a landscape wall that isn't retaining any earth, then it's not considered a retaining wall. Does that answer your question?
I think so. So that doesn't open it up for these to become concrete
No.
everywhere. It's just that one version.
Yep, and it's stone capped
Okay.
and stone faced.
Okay.
But what it means is a wall that gets tall, a certain height of wall is structurally, it's you can design it with the concrete to be taller than with the stone.
I see. So the base of
you can do it with the stone, but it becomes
Yeah.
more like this is saying that wall has to be 17 inches deep in order to retain a certain amount of earth. Anyway.
But they're already on the plans, and the plans are going to stay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Carry on.
Do we have
where are we?
language? Okay, that good with everyone? Then,
Change that first sentence. Did you take a look?
okay, so then on page 11, it's paragraph 17 on utilities, I think, yes, Bill, you want to explain? Or you want before this?
No, in the blue, it says the developer shall use this water design unless otherwise directed by the town engineer. If so directed, in the alternative, the water line will loop through the site. Town engineer asked that language go in, which allows for the looping to come through Carberry Lane. If it cannot go through Carberry Lane and it's determined by the town engineer that it can't, that language actually allows the project to move forward, taking off of Canton Ave.
And we have two sets of plans
Yes.
that reflect the two different ways for it to happen.
C51 actually has the connection that shows where it is on the land. It's within the right-of-way, within the easement off of Carberry Lane, and it shows that there's a gap, and it shows where it would go if it can connect to that point into the project.
So John Flynn, Town Council John Flynn, spoke to Town Engineer John Thompson and DPW Director Chase
Yep.
about this and is comfortable with the way this is addressed, okay?
Great.
All right. And he added some clarifying, what he felt was clarifying language here at the bottom, okay?
Yep.
All right. Any
would
other
take out
comments
the-
about this one?
I would un-yellow it.
On yellow it, yes. Okay. On 19.
Technical term.
19 grading. About a month ago, I put in this about changing of grades and when the planning board would like to see them, and I had suggested 2 feet. And the reason I suggested this was that we determine height based on grades. And we've made our decisions about our comfort with the site plan and the architectural plans based on our understanding of the grading plans. So my feeling was that anything that was going to vary more than this should be something that comes back to us. Because we've talked about in other applications where certain decisions are made and they haven't been brought back to the board, and the board said, gee, we wish that would have been brought back.
Right.
So we're trying to be more clear, more explicit to the building official about what we want to see come back. Now, I did speak to town council about this. We could consider this in the future, or this board can consider these things in the future as de minimis. Therefore, just not requiring public hearing and a lengthy process, which is one of the concerns that the applicant may have in terms of having this in here. But I do think that when we're talking about something that has as much topographic change, and we were explicit in our bylaw about wanting to minimize how much cut and fill there is, it just seems important to us to keep this provision. So I will look to you to see if you agree.
Makes sense to you? It's fine by me?
Yep.
Makes sense.
Okay. Ryan, you're good with that? I'm assuming he is.
Yeah, it works for me.
Okay. Next is page 13.
Hear me?
Yep,
Thank you. Page 13, section 21 in the affordable housing. This is something that John Flynn, town council, brought up and felt strongly about. So I don't know if you have any concerns about it, Ned?
No.
Jack? No, okay. He didn't feel as if this permit should bind the select board to a certain action. Okay? We already talked about section 23 and adding planning board on the homeowners association documents, right?
She's got it.
All right. And then John Flynn again on section 26 wanted to take out a copy of, but you said we can't. Okay, so
Registry won't accept Mylar plans for permits
Okay.
because they don't create lots.
okay. Next.
They'll record an 8.5 by 11 set of plans this thick as
That
Exhibit
you
A.
can't read. All right, so then on page 15, the last version had Exhibit G taken out. I spoke to John John Flynn about that, and he asked if you want to jump to that exhibit for a moment. Exhibit G, it's found in this. He asked if the board had considered these documents in our deliberations and in our decision. I said that we had, and I asked him, would we then not want to include them? And he thought that we should. Good. He changed the language a little bit from what it was, but they're back. Okay.
My only comment would be that that exhibit become Exhibit H and the color and material boards be Exhibit G because
That's okay with me.
the material boards are required and this is just a reference to other documents that were
Okay.
reviewed.
So we can do that. Okay, I think with that, we go to the other exhibits. So we could go to, we spoke a bit about that traffic. Did you want to look at that further? The traffic mitigation and signage plan, anyone? We're still working on that, okay.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, we're going to work our way through the exhibits now.
Oh, okay.
So Exhibit A is a list of all the drawings, right?
Yep.
Exhibit, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent,
That's Exhibit A.
okay.
Traffic mitigation is what we just had up on the screen.
Right, traffic mitigation was what we had on the screen earlier. I just asked if anybody needed to see that again, okay?
Yep.
And then C is the tree, and we have updated that we're on the table tonight, is the one we should have out,
Oh,
okay?
okay, yep.
All right, so
So we're gonna go through that
go
one.
through that now
Okay.
also.
All right, so I'm going through that one. It's like a maze.
Yeah.
The first page, Denny addresses what we already talked about earlier from one of your comments, right?
Yep.
Okay. And then on page 2, adding the word requirements makes it consistent with what this document's called.
John also
sorry.
put a semicolon in the definitions. So the second sentence in clearing says actions to be considered as clearing include but are not limited to causing irreversible damage to roots or trunks. There should be a semicolon after trunks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right there,
there.
Yep.
So that is not the version that I had here.
You know,
Okay,
John,
So it's
John,
That's fine. You can add
right
it.
here. Are you on?
Yeah, do you have it in yours?
Yeah, so trunks.
Oh, you're adding it.
trunks
Okay,
would be a
that's fine.
semicolon.
Okay, it just
You got
wasn't
that?
here. That's fine, okay, semicolon.
Okay.
Go ahead then, you have more
That's a
current.
good idea.
well, I got John's copy delivered at about 5:15, and it had
That,
2 minor
that was it, yeah.
edits, one other on page 5, but there are others.
Right,
that-
okay. So then that's good. So now we're on page 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The additional signage that you mentioned.
All in caps, I like it.
All right.
Thank you.
Don't miss
I
this
bet you're
one.
sick of me.
Also on page 4, that the temporary fencing, removing those words wherever possible. We talked about that at our last meeting,
Thank you, I
right?
like that too.
And then at the bottom,
took out
removing that
only.
word only.
Good.
Where's,
Oh,
where was that one? Oh, sorry.
took out the only,
Got
yeah.
it.
Page 5.
So John had a minor edit to one of the edits. So where it says defined in the bylaw as tree equal greater than 10 inches DBH, John strikes the word tree and the symbol, and he simply says defined in the bylaw as 10 DBH or greater.
Yeah.
Inserts the words or greater.
He and I looked at that together when we were on a call, and he made that consistent with the bylaw.
Right.
We added the actual account at our meeting last time.
And just so people know, I actually went out, measured a tree, a little trunk, and it's like this big, 10 inch. When you put a tape measure around it, it's really small. So you think 10 inch, you're thinking 10 inch across, but it's not. Because I was, you know me, did my homework. That's a good thing.
Yes, it is. I'm grateful.
Thank you.
These are otherwise more clerical here, right? So, and that's, I
That's a
think,
circumference. Diameter is a straight line.
So it's the 10 inch across,
That's circumference. That
DBH is across?
Yes, it's the line
Okay.
across.
All right, so maybe I was wrong, so it's bigger. Okay.
This is 11 inches.
What's that?
This is 11 inches.
That's 11 inches, okay, I was wrong. I was measuring, oh, wait a minute, look at, they're measuring it with a diameter breast, they put the tape measure around it.
But that's circumference of the tree.
DBH, diameter of breast height, and they're using a tape
They
measure.
take the circumference and then they take what they're going to take
Okay.
they're going to do the equation to come up with the diameter.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, you guys keep going. I'm looking this up.
All right, so is there anything else on the tree preservation and protection requirements plan?
Okay.
I don't see any.
Okay. Ready to move on to the construction management and phasing requirements, Exhibit D. You on the construction management plan?
Sorry.
There you go.
Cheryl, who added the purple edits?
Combination of Jack and me.
Based upon Denny's comments that
Yeah.
came today, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. So that addresses
Yeah, we
you.
went over that
We went over
one,
that,
yeah.
right. So then we go to page 2. Again, the requirements word, and then the signage. We talked about the last meeting, Denny. Just want to make sure that both ends of Hemlock.
Yep, we wanted
Right.
that. That's good.
Okay. Again, the bottom of page 3, being consistent with the title of the document. Same on page 4.
So John had a request under erosion control
Okay,
that we define NIPDs.
right.
So that is National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, paren NIPDs, close paren.
Thank you, Lauren. Page 5,
5.
adding the drip lines,
Yes, thank you.
right? Okay. And I think then we get to page 8, the phasing. Adjusting for the schedule, right? Any comments there? Exhibit E, the standards for retention of historic dwellings. This doesn't appear to be a red line version.
It's not, it's just the latest one I have.
Just the latest one, okay.
I apologize.
No problem. So what we talked about before was the specification on the window.
And there,
And-
it shows up in 3 places, so on page 1, A1B, Jeld-Wen sightline clad window is the actual name of the
Of the particular window?
particular window, yep. This is a copy of
What page you on?
it. Page 1 of Exhibit E.
Highlighted up on the board.
Ah,
Just added the specific window line. That's added in again on page 2, paragraph 3 at the bottom, under the Devon's house. And it's added one more time on page 3, Walcott House, paragraph 5.
Okay, and so, Steve O'Donnell,
And then he also...
No objection.
no objection, okay, thank you. Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
And then I also struck out language dealing with the...
The wooden arches over windows,
Arches over the window.
it was on page 4 in my notes. number 1 is where it had been. And I don't see it now, okay? Yes, April?
My only comment is, do we want to add or substantially similar product after the exact product type? Because this permit is going to live on forever, and if this company goes out of business, you would literally have to come to us for an edit to change a window.
I would say, or equal of, you want to make sure it meets the same shape, size, volume, pattern, etc.
What is the language you usually use? Of equal
Or equal.
Equal or better
of equal or better?
quality. But I just want to be careful because the Historic Commission did
Yeah.
go through a great deal of negotiating for this specific type of window, right?
And these structures are in which phase again? The historic?
It's kind of, sort of varies.
Because if
we
they
ask
go out of
Steve?
order, we want it to go back to the Historic
Are we
Commission.
unable to ask Steve a question?
Yeah.
Why don't we look at doing something that's equal or better in energy efficiency, and if we're concerned about the aesthetic, which I think we should be, we ask them to get any replacement window approved by the Historic Commission, which is a much easier
Oh, there we go.
task than coming back to the planning board.
Steve, are you okay with that? Do you know what we're talking about?
So
When we reference a specific product in our permits, we like to say or equal or better quality, because at some point this company could go out of business and then they'd be out of conformance if they had. So what we're going to suggest is that we add that language, and if it's a different product, it requires a Historic Commission approval to change it out. Are you okay with that? Okay.
thank you.
Where are we placing this?
3
After
places.
after the
Anywhere it
parentheses.
references those windows?
Right.
Yeah, so we got to
Yeah,
figure out
Delta.
what we wanted to say.
Of equal or better quality. Well, Brian had it a minute ago.
I mean, having written specifications related to products before, I think it's important not just to say equal quality, because something could be of quality but have different, look totally different.
Oh, yeah.
Or substantially similar product with the approval of the Historic
Yeah.
Commission?
No, it should be equal or better product specifications.
But I think what we're saying, Brian, is just because the spec, well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to look exactly the same.
One of the big things that can change
No,
is...
no. With
volume,
agreement of the
pattern,
Historical
sizes.
Commission, I agree. I'm just saying, as it relates to the equal or better, it should be in relation to the product specifications.
I would suggest the term acceptance by the Historical Commission, not approval. That gets into the legal authority of the Historical Commission to approve. That's your jurisdiction.
I think you keep the comma, right, or product of equal or better quality.
I agree with Ned on the legal, on the, on what he said.
Quality specifications with acceptance by the it's not commission, it's like Historical Commission.
Should we add anything about, I mean, what if they don't
And a
accept
comma.
it, that it has to come back to us then?
It would have to if it's,
Would have to, right?
it might not be a substantial
Right, another de minimis
amendment,
kind
might
of?
be diminished, but it would have to come to the board.
All right.
Are we comfortable with how this
Because any
statement
change
reads?
has to come to us? Or like that language that we talked about earlier?
Any,
Can you just highlight it so that?
Yeah, that
if there's
falls
any,
into
if there's
that.
any, if there's any change other than what's approved in an exhibit, it has to come back to the board for approval. May not require renotice and public hearing.
Right.
I would get rid of the word specification, and the reason for it is that, well, I just think that it doesn't tie it quite as much to the shape, size, volume,
Equal or
pattern.
greater performance? You have to say equal or greater something.
Okay, you could say
Oh, quality, we have.
Quality,
Okay,
yeah.
that's fine.
Concrete roof.
So can you guys see this? Can Brian see this?
Had,
Yes, Brian, okay.
How about quality and historic characteristics?
I can see it. My concern with having it be quality or performance, those are words that are not tied to anything. Specifications are, there's a cut sheet for this product that lists the product specifications.
Okay.
If you say quality or performance, well, those are very vague words and don't apply to anything specific.
I'm fine with specifications if we add and historic characteristics, because that ties it back to the
I am
characteristics.
on board with the historic piece.
All right, so let's keep it specifications and add and historic characteristics after specifications.
Oh, that is not specifications.
That keyboard is very bizarre.
Or product of equal or greater specifications.
Historic.
Historic.
And historic characteristics, because that ties it to the mullions, the sight lines, and
Acceptance
all the
plan.
things that would make a difference on historic windows.
And then I think after characters, you should have to write and with. Okay.
And then you changed the drawing reference numbers, right? That
Yes.
tied it back.
Yep, I did.
Okay. Last chance, Steve. Anything else on Exhibit E? Okay, yes, Rich.
And I just don't remember what was said, because on the roofs, they all look like they're being replaced, but on Walcott, it says the slate roof will be retained, restored, or replaced. So it doesn't really, was there anything more specific?
Would it be replaced with like kind, with slate as well?
I just don't recall what was in
This language came
we're-
from the historic commission? Okay, so that's.
This is number 4 on the Walcott House. The slate roof will be retained and restored or replaced as needed. Would that be replaced with like kind, with slate as well?
That's the intent.
All right, so we could say, or replace in kind. Say in kind
That's what I
after
thought.
replaced.
Okay, with kind. That's good catch.
The
Yes,
other
good
building
one.
specified replacing with asphalt
Right.
Yeah.
shingles. This one,
It just doesn't say.
It didn't
it's
say,
slate,
so
it'll be repaired or replaced. as
In
necessary.
kind, I think,
with
yeah.
Yeah,
slate, with
that
slate.
helps.
Okay, good, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm glad you were here tonight.
So, on page 3, C4,
C4.
after the word replaced, put in kind. Thank you, Rich. Anybody else? Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. That takes care of Exhibit E. What was F?
F is the conservation restriction. It has to be reviewed and approved by town council and the Secretary of Environmental Affairs. There's a draft.
The Concom?
What's that? We've met with Concom.
That was with Concom, we don't, okay.
Okay, so that's by reference, but really their
There's a
jurisdiction.
draft, a copy of the draft will be
Yeah.
included as an exhibit, but it'll be subject
Yeah.
to final review by the secretary.
Okay, and then Exhibit G is the colored material boards, there's photographs, we all received that document, and then H we spoke about earlier,
Which is just the litany of other things.
that we considered.
Good.
Okay. Are we ready for a vote?
Who's gonna do it? We don't know. Oh, Brian!
Brian, your
Brian, your last,
motion.
Geez, it's hard from, without everything in front of me, without the agenda in front of me. I think I'm gonna have to defer, I'm sorry. I don't have the agenda right in front of me.
Okay.
all right,
The Walcott
so
was,
how about you want to get some practice, April?
Sure. I would like to make a motion to approve the special permit, site plan approval, and scenic road permit for Great Estates Planned Unit Development, 1672-1726 Canton Ave. Do I have to reference all the exhibits? No.
As amended with all exhibits or something like that?
No, because it refers to all the exhibits,
Right.
so I think that's all we need. Also known as Walcott Woods,
as amended.
as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Then there's a
Second.
All right. Ryan, you get the
Ryan gets
second.
the
Now, I do,
second.
before we vote, I did want to understand the timing of the A and R.
Yeah,
Is this,
you have the
do we
A&R?
make the A and R a part of this?
No.
No.
Do this separate.
We do it separate. Okay. Any further discussion on the motion to approve?
Just a question about the motion and it's as to whether or not we should also include a reference to the plans. I guess the special permit references the plans, but I
Yes.
just want to confirm that.
Yes,
That's all.
Yeah, it does, and it references all of the exhibits and all of the other things that were considered during the deliberation.
And in fact, Brian, the
By name.
Exhibit A lists every set of drawings, the plans.
As does the list of plans on the first page that's wrapping over to page 2.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call vote, all those in favor? All those in favor? Cheryl Tagayas, yes?
Denny Swenson, yes?
Richard Beeler, yes.
April Anderson Lamoureux, yes.
Brian Furs, yes.
Congratulations,
Thank you very much.
everyone.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
All right, now the A and R.
Yeah. So may I make a comment about this?
Sure.
You will have noticed on the last two A&Rs that Lauren has been using this new form,
Yes.
Yes,
the
I did
applicant
notice.
checklist,
Yes.
which I am thrilled about, and I want to say thank you to Lauren. I think this clearly identifies our roles and responsibilities on these applications, which is helpful.
Yes.
And it clearly identifies when things were submitted, what actions were taken, when decisions are required, all things that we ask about every time we get an A&R. So I just want to acknowledge Lauren's hard work and say thank you, because this is very helpful to the board members.
Agreed.
Thank you.
So do you want to go through it, Lauren?
Yes, well,
Or Bill?
thank you. I'm sorry, try to get the plans so people can see on the screen here fully. So the plan here before you is an approval not required plan requesting the approval of this new lot that you'll see here. Let me get a laser pointer. You have a laser pointer? Thank you. So this lot here is approximately, it's 1 acre that will be conveyed to the abutter, Mr. Walker. He's the property there that's being highlighted in the arrow. This approval will allow the lot line and the conveyance of that 1 acre to be joined with his existing property. This is also the plan that you've heard that he will obtain the carriage house from the Carberry estate. What you have before you today, you're approving the lot line. There is adequate frontage, there is adequate.
Actually, there is no frontage, and it is a non-buildable lot.
I'm sorry, yes, thank you. But you're approving a lot line change is in simple explanation of what this is.
It's a non-buildable A&R. Yep, got it.
So in your opinion, this meets all the requirements?
Yes.
And you recommend that we approve it? I'd like to make a motion
As soon as I sit back down.
to allow the town planner to endorse as an approval not required lot, the application for 1702 and 1726 Canton Avenue.
Yeah, non-buildable lot. Can I add that?
Sure. So I would like to make a motion that the town planner endorse 1702 and 1726 Canton Avenue, the non-buildable lot proposed in the A&R application, dated April 19th, 2019.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I second.
Any comment? Okay, again, roll call vote. Cheryl Tagayas, yes?
Denny Swenson, yes?
Beeler, yes.
April Anderson Lamoureux, yes?
Brian Furs, yes.
Okay, thank you.
This big plan, I never even looked at it.
All right.
17.
That's, again,
Wait, go ahead.
before we do a quick quick, I just wanted to give the board a quick overview of the presentation that I'll give as the chair of the Master Plan Implementation Committee to town meeting, just as a heads up.
Yep.
But before we do that, thank you, everyone, related to this Wolcott Woods application. We look forward to quality development, Mr. Dolly.
Thank you all as well. It's been a long year.
Yes.
Years. I'm very proud of what the neighborhood, the town, and I have accomplished here, and I look forward to making this an exceptional community within the town.
So thank you for your hard work.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night. All right, so this will only take a couple of minutes, but because it's going to be on the floor, I didn't want you all to be hearing it for the first time there.
So Cheryl, before we do this, I don't know, Brian, are you still on the call?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, can I just say something about Brian? Everybody knows this is Brian's last meeting. He did not choose to run for re-election. I think he's been an exceptional member of this board. I've been very proud to work with him, and I miss him terribly already as I sit in his seat. And I just want to say thank you, Brian, not only for your friendship, but for all of your hard work on this board. You've made a huge difference, I think, to the town of Milton, and I think you should be acknowledged for it. So thank you. We will miss you.
Thank you,
Yes, I
Brian.
second that.
Thank you. Now you can hang up.
Thank you. I appreciate the kind words. I'm sorry I can't be there. I'm in lovely Los Angeles, and we definitely have better air quality in Milton, if nothing else. So, but thank you for your kind words.
Thank you.
All right, so or this is just the history, so we don't need to really focus on that. Going to the next one, or background, I should say. Again, more background. I think you're all familiar with some of these. But here, just again, there was some comment at Citizen Speak about the landing as well as the zoning. So the landing, that wharf study has been turned over to the select board and to the parks commissioners. And so they are forming a working group to take ideas forward. Whether they do exactly, they're already, and Bill's been working on the Chapter 91 license for the existing dock, not anything new. But Child's Engineering is doing that work, so that's an update on that part. And then Lauren, when you get a sec. And then a little, this is just a little background again for people who aren't familiar with this. You all are familiar with what we did here. Go ahead. Again, a little background, and then I just wanted to mostly tell you what the committee's done since the June meeting last summer. Again, one more, Laura. So with our meeting that was at the Tucker, there was concern about a build-out analysis, concern about traffic analysis. So last summer and fall, MAPC was engaged to do a build-out analysis. And then based on that analysis, Beta, who did the traffic study already for the district, did an additional study based on that build-out analysis. And I think you all were given copies or sent copies of those two documents. And then based on those analyses, the committee's been talking about whether the zoning should be revised, the zoning that MAPC developed. And so we had, I did a walking tour with the Historical Commission. We did some small neighbor working group sessions, 3 days, where we limited the number so we could sit around a table and kind of delve into the details. And I showed how the tools of the zoning work to control the size of a project, so how setbacks work, how FAR works, how lot coverage works, how the parking requirements work. And then we were invited by the trustees of 88 Wharf to come to their building and hear their comments. And then, I'm going to go to the next. So since then, just so you know, there have been no funds available to do other, paid analyses. Neighbors asked additional questions, so I did, based on my experience as an architect, my own analysis of 3 sites, and I showed that at our last meeting, the last committee meeting, and through that work, I do believe we should think about changes to the zoning that was written by MAPC. That's why it hasn't come back to this board yet, in terms of those, and this board being fully occupied and not having really time to take it up yet. But there may be some other analyses that would want to be done either at MPIC or at this board before suggesting it going forward, okay?
Yep.
So to the comments of Kathy Keys, the same thing. The committee has decided that these are things that would want to be the focus for the coming fiscal year. So continuing to work on the village overlay, and also working with the Fire Station Building Committee on what the master plan called the Civic Center, which is the area right around here, because there's planning for a new fire station, but there's also a lot of other users here, so really kind of consider what the master plan had thought about this area as they do that planning. The East Milton Square, we're still waiting for the ULI tap. And I know Lauren and Bill have been in touch with them regularly,
When were they
asking for it.
Here, first week of December?
January 10th,
Oh,
they anticipated 2 months out, and now I've been asking them
Regularly.
regularly.
So there's this, the MPIC committee is still interested in engaging and being a part of that discussion if our board continues to work on that. I mentioned earlier the townwide traffic, and then housing. There's interest in housing. So the request, I mentioned the traffic portion. I didn't mention that the request for the board for town meeting was $50,000, and the warrant committee went with that $50,000. There was also a request for the planning board of $50,000, and that was cut back by the town administrator to $15,000. So in terms of our ability to do things like 40R work, we're thinking 40R work could be $50,000 probably, right? And to do other kinds of analyses, we're going to be potentially hampered by funding. One other thing I'll mention is that Katie Conlon asked the MPIC, given the cuts in many other departments, is to consider a voluntary cut of $10,000 to the request of that 50 down to 40. And they're having a meeting, I think, what did Katie say, on Monday?
I think it's Monday.
The Finance Committee of the Select Board is having a meeting. So we'll see where that stands. But that's, I just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
Thank you.
And I do want if we do have a meeting on the 9th, I'd like just committee updates. So if we have other committee updates, because we'll need to talk about, Brian served on the revitalization committee, the Central Ave.
Yeah.
We'll need to have, that, and then we'll need to, again, if we have Rich who's serving on the housing committee, and we have other committees, the capital improvement, et cetera. So we need to talk about, we'll need to talk about positions like chair and roles on, and who's going to serve on committees.
Yeah,
So we'll
can I
need
just
to-
make one comment about committees? So I won't, the capital planning committee will have a presentation at town meeting too.
Okay.
So I won't have one on the 9th, but
Okay.
you'll already know. You'll be fully informed.
It's just that may be our first meeting with our new member. So,
Yes.
it.
Who is terrific, and I'm looking forward to working with
Yeah,
her.
me too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to stay on my committee, the technology committee.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the housing community. I think Melinda is doing a great job
I would
doing
be
that.
devastated to be removed from capital planning, and I'm not even being facetious.
No, I'm saying, I feel like we're
I
just
love
getting
it.
going on the housing committee. So,
Somebody is wanting to
I'm
knock
excited.
me off of the master plan implementation committee.
You're enjoying it. So I just got a question. So
Yeah.
I apologize, I probably have been one of the people asking about the, recently about the ULI report, and it's mostly because I've been starting to get phone calls from
Yeah, I'm sure.
neighbors asking.
People are
so-
like, what's going on?
Yeah, and so one of the other things, though, I remember that was supposed to come out of that report was us talking about process, and I remember the graphic in my head, I think it was green, that talked about process and how they were going to kind of work with us. I forgot her name so many times, that came to the housing committee, that was part of it, and she, I know, was going to help us
Oh,
work on that.
from Mass Housing Partnership.
Yeah, and so.
Manisha?
Yeah.
She actually left Mass Housing Partnership.
Oh,
since-
wonderful.
Yeah, she's,
Great. So, but what I was, well, let's pretend you didn't say that for a second. What I was
She's at
hoping
another
for was
housing
once
group,
that
isn't
came
she?
out, we were going to start talking about building a better process.
She
and
is?
I feel like that's getting kicked down the road way away.
Yeah, we
And
gotta
we gotta get going on that.
we need a
Well,
better process.
I think if we all want to think about what initiatives we think we'd want to tackle, in the next year, I have done that myself in the past, nudge them over to whoever's chair as the kind of things to think about. And I've mentioned a number of times the rules and regs. I think you can see with this application why. So that's not necessarily a process, but I think it affects our process because it affects how we review these. And those require public hearing, but not beyond our board in terms of who votes on them. So it's not like zoning, for example.
I think the idea of like reviewing our rules and regs seems so cumbersome. But I think of things like street width, which is an obvious one. Like there's some,
Well, some of it you wouldn't need to do, like,
Yeah.
exactly. But the streets, to me, we have one street profile and that's it. And we don't have, for different characteristics, the
Right.
kinds of roads you have. We don't have, I'm interested in have us doing low impact stormwater design instead of having everything. And this is probably something that requires DPW, town engineer, and
yeah, another one
director.
is similar in that bucket is the use of PVC pipe.
Right. I mean, there's certain things that we are waived all the time, so we should really be updating the rules and regs to reflect that.
But I guess my comment was there's some low-hanging fruit
Yes.
that we can start with that's sort of discreet and
Yeah.
helps us move the agenda forward, but doesn't feel as overwhelming.
Well, I think for something like the low-impact design, the state has
Yeah.
guidelines for it, so it's not like you're starting from scratch on some of this. And the roadway width is part of low impact because you're decreasing how much impervious pavement, you're putting out there, so how much stormwater has to go into containment, because it impacts trees, like these subsurface structures, you don't have trees above them. So they all relate, they all tie together, I guess is my point. And if we while we don't have a big application before us, this would be a good time to tackle. And the other thing to think about, and Lauren, maybe you can redistribute, is some of the zoning articles that we've said we were going to address that if we're going to do zoning, it has to be to the select board by beginning of August, and we're almost to May, so.
One quick question, sorry, not to prolong the end of the meeting, but I know you have fire station building committee up there.
Yes.
Do you think that the school committee that they're building to look at the schools and expand them, will we do anything with that like we would with fire, or?
Well, even this with the fire, it's not something that comes to us,
No, I understand.
but
Good.
the MPIC has asked, and in several forums, that we have a role because we really feel
Well,
it's
I've heard the
important.
select
So
board
if we
state
want to
that
have a
too, several
role,
forums as well.
so if we want to review site plan, it's not required, but we can ask, I guess.
Well, it's come up at many meetings with different boards, so that's why I ask. And I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it's been stated in public.
Right.
Okay, are we done?
So,
Yeah.
do you want to make a request? I'm sorry, just to
No,
finish
yeah,
up on that
sorry,
thought.
I thought you were done.
I don't right now, I guess. I don't.
Okay.
I think they're just, I don't even know if they have a particular committee yet.
Okay, but something to think about.
Yeah.
Okay, as things progress. All right, Brian, enjoy
I will
your,
make a motion.
He's always first.
We miss you
Do I
already.
have to sign this in a certain color?
No,
No,
as long as one person.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Yay!
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Wait, Cheryl Tagayas, yes.
Denny Swenson, yes.
Richard Miller, yes.
April Anderson Lamoureux, yes.
Brian Furs, absolutely.
All right.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Safe travels, Brian.